Think the Tesla Model S or the latest supercar invented the future? Think again. Long before today's high-tech rides, a handful of forgotten cars were quietly rewriting the rulebook, decades ahead of their time. We're talking about machines that introduced electric power before it was cool, self-driving ideas before computers could fit in a room, and designs so bold they still look like concept art today. Most of them flopped, vanished, or were mocked as crazy experiments. Yet the very features we rely on now were born in their garages. In the next few minutes, we'll uncover the groundbreaking cars history almost erased, and show you how their wild innovations drive the vehicles of today and tomorrow. Buckle up, because these forgotten legends didn't just predict the future, they built its Watch until the end for a surprise bonus concept car that will knock you off your feet. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more mind-blowing automotive history and futuristic designs.
(1938), the famous, now historic Y job.
Long before Tesla unveiled its first prototype, before Detroit dreamed up the muscle car, one man built a machine so far ahead of its time that the world had no name for it. So they gave it one: the concept car. In 1938, General Motors design chief Harley Earl took a humble Buick chassis and turned it into a rolling prophecy. His Buick Y job, named after the experimental aircraft code Y, looked like it had driven straight out of the future. Hidden headlights that blinked open, power windows, electrically operated decades before they became standard, a convertible top concealed beneath a metal deck, even the first stirrings of power steering. Earl wasn't just designing a car, he was designing tomorrow. Reporters called it exactly that, the car of the future. And when someone spotted it on a Detroit street 10 years later, they thought it was a brand new model. That's how far ahead of its time this forgotten masterpiece was. The Y job didn't just predict the look of post-war Buicks, it set the blueprint for every concept car that followed. The dream machines, the prototypes, the one-offs that dared to show us what's next. All of them trace their lineage back to this one sleek silver arrow.
When people got a good look at the one and only Firebird at General Motors Motorama, they left no doubt that Americans confidently expect this country's industrial and engineering genius to come up with tomorrow's best as it has today's. For although the fabulous Firebird will never roll its wheels on public highways, Americans want the cars they do drive to reflect all the engineering imagination and unfettered experimentation that can possibly be put into test tube cars like this.
Despite looking ready to take off, this Firebird was never meant to fly. Meet the XP21 Firebird 1, General Motors' wild leap into the future, the very first gas turbine automobile ever tested in the United States. Dreamed up in the early 1950s by GM styling legend Harley J. Earl and research chief Charles L. McEwen, the Firebird 1 was less a car and more a jet fighter for the highway. Its gleaming white body and fighter plane canopy screamed supersonic speed, but its real revolution lay under the skin. Instead of a piston engine, GM installed its experimental Whirlfire turbo power gas turbine. Unlike a jet, which uses exhaust to push itself forward, this turbine powered the rear wheels directly. The numbers? A searing 370 horsepower, a turbine spinning at 26,000 RPM, all in a machine that weighed just 2,800 pounds. This wasn't just a styling exercise, it was a full-blown engineering experiment, proof that the future of power might lie beyond pistons and spark plugs. The XP21 didn't take flight, but it ignited imaginations and paved the way for decades of turbine-powered dreams. The Firebird 1 was more than a car. It was a statement that tomorrow's technology could and would take shape on four wheels.
The space race. A stunning time to be alive. With modern advances and fear from above ever present. Now we can look to a time of certainty, of luxury, and of atomic power. One thing to remember about this age of fear and technology is that no one will ever feel powerless again.
In the 1950s, the world was buzzing about the boundless promise of atomic energy. Power plants, submarines, even airplanes were being imagined with nuclear hearts. And Ford? They wondered, why not a car? They called it the Ford Nucleon, a name as on the nose as it gets. Unveiled in 1957, it wasn't just a concept car. It was a thought experiment in rolling atomic power. Instead of a trunk or pickup bed, Ford envisioned a compact fission reactor sitting behind the passenger cabin. To balance that imagined weight, the occupants were pushed all the way forward, almost hanging over the front wheels, like an airport tow tractor built for the highway. It was never meant to be built or even tested. The Nucleon was a showcase of pure atomic optimism, a time when we believed nuclear energy could shrink to the size of a car engine and power the daily commute. Today, it stands as a symbol of that brief moment when the road ahead looked positively nuclear, and the future felt only an atom away. Some concept cars are nothing more than wild sketches on wheels. But every now and then, a manufacturer creates something so far ahead of its time, it feels like a glimpse into the future. And at number 7 on our list, few cars embody that better than Mazda's jaw-dropping Ferrari. Unveiled in late 2007 and officially revealed at the 2008 North American International Auto Show, the Mazda Ferrari, whose name literally means sound of the wind, wasn't just a pretty showpiece. This was a concept car with serious race car DNA, designed by Swift Engineering and Mazda's own Lawrence van den Akker. The Ferrari was the 5th and final chapter in Mazda's Nagare, or Flow, design series. And it wasn't built on some imaginary platform either. Its chassis came straight from a Courage C65 Le Mans prototype, the same type Mazda had run in the American Le Mans series. Under the sculpted bodywork sat a heavily modified 20B3 rotor Wankel engine, tuned by the legendary rotary experts at Racing Beat. Pumping out around 450 horsepower and running on E100 ethanol, it was as green as it was mean, long before alternative fuels became a hot topic. The Ferrari proudly wore the number 55, paying tribute to Mazda's own 1991 24 hours of Le Mans winning 787B. And unlike most concept cars, this one wasn't destined to stay on a turntable. Mazda actually took it out on track, with real laps at Laguna Seca and Buttonwillow proving it was more than just a show queen. Lawrence van den Akker even hinted the Ferrari could one day compete at Le Mans, or maybe even inspire a road car. That dream never materialized, but its influence can still be seen in Mazda's design language today. A concept car that looked like a sculpture of the wind, powered by a screaming triple rotor engine and running on pure ethanol. That's why the Mazda Ferrari easily earns its spot among the most futuristic concept cars ever built. Now, let's move on to the next groundbreaking machine on our list. If you think the Audi R8 was the first time Audi went all out with a mid-engine supercar, think again. Back in 1991, Audi unveiled something straight out of a sci-fi dream, the Avis Quattro. Debuting at the Tokyo Motor Show, the Avis wasn't just another flashy concept, it was a crystal ball for Audi's future. Underneath its liquid metal look sat an aluminium space frame, only the second time Audi had shown off this featherweight architecture. That tech later became the backbone of the production A8 luxury sedan just a few years later. Designer J. Mays took cues from the legendary 1930s auto union races, wrapping the car in polished 1.5mm hand-beaten aluminum panels so shiny they looked like molten chrome. And while Audi promised a 6-litre, 60-valve W12 pumping out over 500 horsepower, the show car actually hid a dummy engine, a wood and plastic stand-in, because the real W12 wasn't ready until nearly a decade later. With 3 lockable differentials, rear-wheel steering, and a roof-mounted NACA duct, the Avis Quattro wasn't just a styling exercise, it was a mechanical fantasy. It hinted at Audi's supercar ambitions years before the world ever heard of the R8. Zooming into number 5.
Looks like fantasy, but the Questor could be in your garage in the not-so-distant future. Buick has done a good job of futuristic styling with some very here-and-now electronics. The styling is very rounded, but what makes this car different are the electronics. You just pull out your personalized laser.
Before cars became rolling computers, there was one concept that predicted it all: the 1983 Buick Quester. Unveiled at the Chicago Auto Show, the Quester packed an unbelievable 14 onboard computers, at a time when most people didn't even have one at home. Its futuristic laser key unlocked the driver's door with an invisible light beam, years before keyless entry was even a thing. Inside, it boasted a touchscreen command center. Yes, a touchscreen in the early 80s, where you could even make calls through a built-in radio telephone, and it came with an early form of navigation system, long before GPS became standard. Of course, it still had one very 80s detail, a trusty cassette deck, proof that even the most forward-thinking car couldn't completely escape its era. The Buick Quester didn't make it to production, but it foreshadowed the tech-filled cars we take for granted today. Back in 1965, Ford was already peeking into the future with a radical concept called the Ford Tecna. Although designed mid-decade, it didn't make its public debut until the 1968 New York International Auto Show, where Ford proudly billed it as the car of the 70s. And they weren't kidding. This boxy testbed showcased over 50 potential innovations that might become Ford's better ideas for the years ahead. Its engineering was straight out of a race car, with a honeycomb steel platform and bonded body panels, borrowing tricks from the Ford MK4 Sports prototype. Up front, the Tecna offered an unobstructed panoramic view, thanks to a structural windshield that wrapped around and completely eliminated the front corner pillars. A bold move even by today's standards. And here's a quirky fact. It even came equipped with an odor detector, proving that Ford's vision of the future included keeping the cabin smelling fresh. The Tecna never hit production, but its forward-thinking design hinted at the safety and comfort features we take for granted decades later. Number 3. The 1955 Lincoln Futura. The concept car so radical, it literally became the Batmobile. Picture this. Ford's top designers Bill Schmidt and John Najjar sketch a dream machine after Schmidt spots a shark while diving. The result? A hand-built $250,000 showstopper close to $3 million in today's money, crafted by the legendary Ghia Coachworks in Italy. The Futura looked like it rolled straight out of a sci-fi comic. A double clear bubble canopy, huge hooded headlight pods, and tail fins so dramatic they seemed to slice the air. Even its pearlescent white paint was groundbreaking, made by mixing pulverized fish scales into the finish for a shimmering, otherworldly glow. But this wasn't just a static showpiece. Under the skin sat a fully operable 368 cubic inch Lincoln 5.8 and an experimental Y-shaped backbone chassis, a preview of the Continental Mark II. The Futura turned heads at the 1955 Chicago Auto Show, starred in the 1959 film It Started with a Kiss, and even inspired styling cues on late 50s Lincolns and early 60s Fords. Then came its second life. In 1966, customizer George Barris transformed the aging concept into TV history's most iconic hero car, the Batmobile. From pearl white dream to crime-fighting legend, the Lincoln Futura proves that a single concept car can define not just an era of design, but pop culture itself. Number 2, the 2003 Chrysler Airflight, a sleek four-door that looked like it came from the next decade. Unveiled at the Geneva Auto Show, the Airflight mixed sports coupe attitude with everyday practicality. At first glance, you'd swear it was a two-door, but hidden rear doors gave it the usability of a sedan, long before four-door coupe became a buzzword. Its DNA? A shortened Chrysler LX platform, the same bones that would underpin the 300, powered by a 90-degree V6. But the real magic was in the design. The front and rear borrowed the crisp, muscular lines of the Crossfire, while the cabin felt like a concept lounge. A single sculpted spine ran from dash to cargo bay, and the floor behind the rear seats stepped up to create a dramatic raised luggage area. The 7-spoke wheels and satin-trimmed windshield were pure Crossfire influence, yet the overall package hinted at Chrysler's upcoming sedans. In fact, key styling cues surfaced just a few years later in the 2007 Sebring. Even its name carried history, a nod to the 1949 Nash Airflight, an early wind tunnel-shaped pioneer that eventually became part of the Chrysler family tree. The Chrysler Airflight wasn't just a show car. It was a quiet preview of Chrysler's design language for the mid-2000s, blending past inspiration with a forward-looking silhouette that still turns heads today.
Concept cars that are in this display. I remember this one, and I don't know why I remember this one from PPG.
Number 1, the 1986 Chevrolet Indy Concept, a fantasy machine built in record time to shout Chevy's racing pedigree to the world. In late 1985, Chevrolet gave the go-ahead for an audacious showpiece, something to spotlight the Ilmor-engineered IndyCar power plant they were sponsoring. The brief? Create a jaw-dropping prototype in just 6 weeks. Designers raced from clay to full-scale show queen, and when the covers came off at the North American International Auto Show, jaws dropped. Its centerpiece looked ready for the track, a transversely mounted twin-turbo 2.65-litre Indy racing engine. But here's the twist, it was all for show. That engine was purely decorative. The car wasn't even drivable. Chevrolet wasn't done though. 2 later versions followed, one finally made fully functional, and the concept ultimately paved the way for the twin-turbo Lotus-built CERV3 of 1990. The Chevrolet Indy concept proved that sometimes a bold illusion is all you need to steal the spotlight. and hint at the supercar future GM was dreaming of. Bonus entry: the Maserati Boomerang, the razor-edged, flying wedge that reshaped car design for an entire decade. Unveiled in the early 70s, the Boomerang looked like it had been carved by a jet stream. Sharp angles, low stance, and a windshield that felt almost horizontal. It wasn't just wild, it was a blueprint for the future. Its dramatic wedge profile went on to influence icons such as the Volkswagen Golf, Lotus Esprit, and even the stainless steel DeLorean DMC-12. The Boomerang showed the world that angular, space-age styling could define an era. Though it never entered production, its impact was enormous, setting the trend for the entire 1970s and leaving fingerprints on some of the most recognizable cars in history. The Maserati Boomerang may be largely forgotten today, but its sharp-edged vision cut a path every other designer would soon follow. We've just taken a ride through some of the boldest, most forward-thinking concept cars ever built. Now it's your turn. Drop a comment below and tell us, what's your favorite forgotten concept car that was way ahead of its time? And if you enjoyed this trip through automotive history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss the next episode. Until next time, keep dreaming big and keep those wheels turning.